So Pikmin 4 was finally announced last year and was given a full trailer recently a few months ago. I've already made a video on the first Pikmin game, so why not, and since Pikmin 4 is coming, make a video on Pikmin 2. Now before we do so, I think I should talk about my personal history with the Pikmin series. The first Pikmin game I've ever played was actually the most recent one at the time, Pikmin 3 on the Wii U. I played it, beat it, and really enjoyed it, and went back to the first one. However, for the second one, I've never actually played before until this video I made. The only thing I know about this game is mostly people saying stuff like, this game's not as good as the first one, it's probably the weakest one. But the one thing I know for certain was people saying is that, be wary about the cave system in this game. So I was very curious on what the cave system in this game is going to be like from what I've heard. But with everything out of the way, let's get started. So the game starts directly after the first game where Olimar repairs his ship and is able to fly home. Once he is able to return to his home planet, the president of the company he works at tells Olimar that they're in some serious trouble. The president sent this rookie named Louie out to ship some special pick carrots that are made of gold. Unfortunately, Louie was supposedly attacked by a bunch of space rabbits that ate all of their carrots. Considering how rare and expensive these special carrots are, they are forced to pay off a massive loan. And also gotta say, this for some reason gives me a chuckle. But anyway, so this pretty much means is that Olimar has just lost his ship after spending the entire game last time getting it back. Fortunately, while he was at the planet, Olimar was able to collect this special bottle cap, which he was planning to use it as a gift for his son as a souvenir from his trip. So when Olimar heard the news and actually dropped it, the computer from the company scanned it and stated that it was worth a lot of money. This gives the president an idea of sending Olimar and Louie back to the planet that Olimar just came from to get all the treasures they can find. And thus, it's up to Olimar and Louie to go back to the Pikmin planet and get all the treasure to save their company. The plot is very simple and pretty goofy, which fits Pikmin a lot. I find it funny is that in the last game, Olimar was trying to get all the ship parts so he can survive and see his family again, only to immediately get forced to be sent back to the planet to get treasure for the company. And as for this new guy named Louie, well, I'm gonna cut the bullshit and say that Louie is the one who ate all the carrots and just lied about space rabbits. The reason why is because Louie is probably the biggest glutton in any Nintendo game ever. Even more so than the series where the character is supposed to inhale and swallow fucking animes. And even then, when you're playing as Louie, he has these logbooks that you can read, which is mostly him saying how much he wants to gut out some of these creatures so he can eat them. But that's enough about Louie because this is a video about Pikmin 2. But anyway, so for the gameplay. It's pretty much exactly like the first game, but with some key differences here and there, but mostly it's pretty identical to the first one. You pretty much explore these vast areas, try to defeat creatures to gather more Pikmin, and get collectible treasures and such. The location you're exploring is exactly like the first game, but a lot more remixed, so it didn't feel like you're playing the same area. Kinda like with the upcoming Zelda, where it's very much the same area, but very, very remixed. But this is not to say that this is just Pikmin 1.5, because there is one big difference from this game than the last game, which that in the first game there's this 30-day limit where Olimar needs to get all his ship parts back before he dies. The stakes were a lot higher in the first game, but in the second game you can play as many times as you want and play as infinite amount of days. You can make Olimar stay here for about a decade and let him miss his son's graduation party. I don't really mind this much because with the first game I was able to beat it under the 30-day limit. Including this one too, where I was able to beat it under 27 days. But anyway, so all of the three original Pikmin from the first game returns to this one, and they pretty much share the exact same elements. The red Pikmin are fireproof, the blue Pikmin can go through water. And lastly, the yellow Pikmin returns, and you can throw them into high places, but they also have a brand new element, which is that they're immune to electricity. Now in this game, there's a brand new hazard, which is electricity, where if a Pikmin that's not yellow touches it, they'll get electrocuted to death. So it's pretty much a must avoid at all costs, because at least with the fire and water ones, you can get them out of it, but with electricity, it's an instant death. And with these three Pikmin, they're also paired with two brand new ones, but you're not going to find them in the above areas. And that's because what makes this one the most unique game in the series are these brand new caves. So like in the first game, you'll be able to find treasure in the above areas, but also these special holes that Olimar and the Pikmin can go into to find even more treasure, alongside with dangerous enemies. So once you've entered these cave areas, you'll go through various dungeons trying to get out the treasure. They're divided into 5 different floors, where every time you clear a floor, you can go down even deeper to get even more treasure. Now the level design in these areas are very different from the above grounds, because with these they're a bit more of a dungeon crawler than a strategy game. There is some strategy on which Pikmin you should use, but when it comes to the time management part of the above areas, that is completely absent from these areas. Because when you enter these cave areas, time literally freezes above ground. Like, you can stay here as long as you want, unlike when you're outside, where there's a time limit. This I'm a bit mixed on, because on one hand, it's cool that you can have enough time as you want in these areas to strategize and see what's the best route to get all the treasure and stuff. But on the other hand, I feel like it makes it a bit more disjointed, because you're strategizing all you can in these caves areas, but when you get to the above areas, there's suddenly a time limit. Although, to be fair, the structure for these areas are a lot more arcadic compared to the above ground areas. And what also makes these areas a lot more challenging is that you cannot add more Pikmin to your party. Once you enter the caves, you cannot add more unless you find these special seed areas. So I hope to God you have a certain amount of Pikmin that are immune to certain hazards, otherwise you're gonna have stuff like this. God damn it! Now, there are 2 other good incentives of going through the cave areas. The first one are getting these exclusive Pikmin that you can only find in the caves. The first one are these purple Pikmin that are very strong and powerful, and do these cute little animations when you first see them. These are very effective, especially with the bosses in these dungeons, because they can easily attack them and kill them instantly. And lastly are the brand new white Pikmins, which are immune to poison, and every time an enemy eats them, they'll be poisoned as well. Honestly, I really like these new additions because they add a bit more of an offense approach than just a simple defense. However, if I have one specific nitpick I have with the dungeons, is that they are completely randomized. As in, every time you boot up a new game, all the layouts will be completely different. No other playthrough is going to be the same. But I feel like what doesn't help with these areas is that sometimes you'll accidentally activate a trap where, like this for example, I set off a bomb trap, so I had to run away as fast as I can before I lose any more Pikmin. And then there's stuff like this, where they sent me in an area where these giant enemies can shoot boulders, instantly kill off my Pikmin. Luckily, the purple Pikmins do somewhat help with this, because since they are overpowered, they can help you just simply annihilate them before they can attack the other Pikmins. Especially if you give them the special spray where you can make them even more powerful and kill them even faster. And lastly, every time you finish one of these dungeons, you'll have these special boss areas where, every time you defeat them, you'll get this really special treasure that can make Olimar do special abilities. They're pretty much simple additions like making them immune to fire, electricity, or unlock the special challenge mode. Overall, despite taking like some of the stakes away from the first game, I kind of feel like gameplay-wise, Pikmin 2 is slightly a bit better than the first one, considering that they add new stuff to the gameplay, and they make every single Pikmin in this game very important. Even though sometimes every now and then they can do some cheap pot shots, I feel like overall it's a bit better than the first one. But anyways, so for the presentation of this game. For a GameCube title, this game looks phenomenal. The areas you explore in this game just feels very lively, like this was a place that people used to live years ago. Especially with the treasures you can find, where they name them something very special, where you can clearly tell what they are, but since they don't know what it is, they say that these are mysterious alien artifacts. Even though that clearly these are just normal human items and such. Just simple things like a bottle cap. Interestingly though, there's some collectibles that are actually real-world objects or brands. Various things, like you can find a Duracell battery, or a 7-Up bottle cap. You can even find a simple Game & Watch system. I know the more cynical side will consider this as shameless product placements, but I don't know, I feel like stuff like this really adds to the world. Like, it's not like they literally say they are these certain products. Like, for example, with the Duracell battery, they just call it a Courage Core. Stuff like this is just really charming in my opinion. And what is also great is the music in this game, because, wow. I honestly prefer the soundtrack of the first game a bit more, but the sounds in here is just very cozy feeling. Now, if I only have one criticism of the presentation, is that I don't really like how the caves look in this game. A lot of times it's mostly just the same dark corridors you're going through time after time again through this game. I honestly like how they switch things up aesthetically, like for when you're just going through these caves. Eventually you're going through these weird bathtub areas that kind of makes me think of a Saw movie for some reason. And there's also this, you're going through various dungeons and stuff, going through dark corridors, and then suddenly when you go deeper underground, it's suddenly daylight. But honestly, that's my only negative with the presentation of this game. Overall, it's still pretty good, just like the first one. But anyway, so with everything out of the way, time to wrap up this story. So as Olimar and Louis travel through various areas trying to get all the treasure, they finally have enough to pay off their debt. And I've got to say, this scene really made me laugh ironically because, like, this scene right here looks like the president just freaking died. But anyways, so as Olimar leaves the planet, he looks back and remembers all the Pikmin that helped him on this journey. And this is when he realized somehow he forgot to bring Louis. Like, no joke, he literally left Louis abandoned on a planet with no way to get home. And it's even worse when you realize that without a ship, there's no way he's going to be safe at night. But anyways, so as Olimar returns home, the president thanks Olimar for saving the company, but Olimar says that there's still more treasure on the planet. However, with Louis absent, the president decides to go himself with Olimar to get more treasure. So yeah, there's not necessarily like a big endgame goal, unless you're counting saving Louis, but who really wants to save Louis? But yeah, even when you complete the main game, there's still a lot of meat on the bone. You can go 100% and collect every treasure of the game, you can do the fun challenges, or you can speedrun through the game and see how long you can get all the treasure the fastest. So yeah, overall, Pikmin 2, it's still a pretty good game. Do I consider this a better improvement to the first game? Well, actually yeah, I honestly say this is a bit better than the first one. However, at the same time, I honestly consider this more of a acquired taste than like an objective thing. I honestly wouldn't blame anyone if they were a bit put off with this game thanks to its brand new dungeon crawler-like structure, which honestly messes up with the pacing a lot in some aspects because this is honestly the longest Pikmin game in the series, but that's mostly because the cave system takes up most of the time. So I'll just say this, if you want to play a game that's very short but very replayable and has good time management, then play the first one. But if you want to play a game that's longer and has a less strict time limit, then play the second one. I honestly say that Pikmin 2 is about as the same level as Pikmin 1. It's not better or worse, it mostly comes down to acquired taste. Honestly, I just wish people were able to play these games a lot easier. This is why I'm glad that emulators like Dolphin exist, because it allows you to play games that you most likely not experience. I was actually planning to get a used copy of this game, but that's what I was completely surprised is that both the GameCube and Wii version are incredibly expensive. And honestly, I feel like they should just re-release this game on Nintendo Switch and such, like have a widescreen HD remaster or something, because I feel like Pikmin specifically represents everything I like about the GameCube, which is that they like to be weird, experimental and such, which is why it always gives us really fun and very charming games, and Pikmin 1 and 2 are definitely extremely charming games. But if I have to choose my favorite Pikmin game, that's actually going to be, for the next entry in the series, Pikmin 3. I don't know when I'll make a video on this game, but it'll be definitely this year. But that'll do for today, so thank you for watching and I'll see you later. Bye bye!